All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome into another episode of the Nat Bros podcast. Welcome to episode 20 something another.
8.
28. Yeah, that sounds good. Welcome into episode 28. And today we are out of the book and we are actually just going to be talking about.
Issues.
Yeah, we're going to be talking about furries today. And what furries are, and kind of like our own thoughts about them, and kind of our own, I guess, feelings and questions and things that we have come up with in relationship to furries through different research that we kind of like looked at online, but also never having actually interacted with anybody who like professes to be a furry, save through the internet, save through what we've read from people who say that they are furries and they produce things online. So
I would say the closest I've come to a furry is like maybe today I saw someone dressed up as like Batman, Batwoman figure.
okay,
Almost had like
yeah,
the nice little, if you can call it, a mask over their eyes and like
mm-hmm.
boots, and I don't know. There was no cape. It was like, huh?
Was it
That's
was it
different.
for a convention or anything like that?
I don't know what it was for. I was
Maybe.
just walking through Walmart. I saw this.
So I'll say this: the closest I've been to a furry. So here in China, they like if you go out to certain places, like, well, actually, I would say actually you have actually been closer to a furry. The closest you've been to a furry would be like Disney World,
Oh wow.
right?
Yeah, I
But
guess.
but besides Disneyland and Disney World, outside of those, like there are certain places you can go here in China where you'll see people dressed up as like mice or bunnies, and to specifically get pictures with children and to get money that way. From our understanding, and I'll tell you what I know, and then Andrew can fill in based on if I miss anything. A furry is just somebody who dresses up as an animal of some sort, either real or mythical, and uses that animal as a way to express themselves in public. And so, yeah. Is there anything
Yeah,
else that you?
I would say it was the way I understood was a furry was not just someone that dressed up as a animal, but like believed like it was like they were morphing into an animal too. Like it was like a part of their different persona.
So
Which
what I would say is like I did do a little research on that. That is a very small subset of people who claim to be furries, and it's actually they're apparently not furries. They have different names for them. There was one that I read that they're called Therians, which is people who feel like they are part animal. Now the problem is that furry I think is just easier to say, and they kind of just lump anybody that has anything to do with animals into that. At least this is based on what I have heard and read about and listened to in the furry community. Is you want to explain to them why we're talking about this?
uh well, I mean, to keep it simple, it's just more or less a touch close to home, where some of the high schools nowadays are having issues with the students, meowing or purring, and then now they're requesting like kitty litter boxes in the bathrooms, like for them to be able to pee and I guess poop. I don't know if it's
Well, I will say this. I think one thing that I did read is that apparently there's like a TikTok trend that is saying, hey, um, that like there are people barking or hissing or meowing at teachers, and that generally is what's going on is because it is a TikTok trend. As far as the litter boxes, apparently this is an extreme thing that like what I've read is that there are like hardcore conservatives, hardcore Republicans who are saying that this is happening, but in all honesty, it's not. Now, again, I don't know. I'm not there. I haven't like
I
propagating.
haven't gotten in contact with anybody at the
Right.
schools either to
And so
ask. It's
that's the
just,
thing is it was posted on Facebook that had mentioned that a certain county that they're going to all of a sudden start putting litter boxes in. And it's like, okay, but it was posted on Facebook by a guy, and it's like, okay, this guy all of a sudden, as soon as that got posted, it seems like whoever was like hardcore in the Republican area is like, oh, we got to send this out because this is insane. It's like, guys, the problem is you got to do your due diligence. And I tried to find this post, I couldn't find it anywhere. I even did some research on that particular county and tried to figure out was this right. Still nothing. And so now, but I have again, I did do research and I did see that there was a TikTok trend of kids barking and meowing and hissing at teachers. I did see that that was consistent throughout the U.S. And so I did see that. However, as far as kids, you know, requesting a litter box, I didn't see anything in regards to that. Um, so
I
to
mean,
kind of
it
bring
may
it
just
back,
be, honestly, it's probably just kids just acting like a bunch of idiots because they don't want to be in class.
which is fine. I mean, you and I were idiots as children. I mean, we acted
No, I
like
was. I don't know
fools.
what you're talking about. I was
Yeah.
perfect.
Through the research, what we were finding out is that basically, like furries are basically the like animals that have human characteristics. Like that's the interest that furries have in these. Like they're interested in animals that have human characteristics. So thinking like Zootopia, thinking like any of the Disney characters, thinking of even like the Muppets to an extent, like these types of human like characteristics that animals may take on in order and being interested in that particular type of art, those particular types of costumes, and even potentially be dressing up like that. Some people uh, feel that like furries is more of like a over sexualized like group, or that they that pretty much if you're a furry then you're an overly sexual person. But some of the research that I had found, and even some of the research that Andrew and I had looked at, or some of the videos that we had watched, um, kind of like said, yes, there are furries who do that, but it's not like every furry does that. It's not like all of them. It's just that they get a bad rap in the news or in their portrayal in the media. And as a Christian, like we can definitely understand because generally when Christians are portrayed in like certain types of movies or TV shows, generally they're portrayed in like the most extreme way. So I kind of understand that. Like I get that. I'm like, oh, okay, that makes sense. Like I can understand how they're being portrayed. Um,
Yeah, honestly, I mean, just to sum it up, it's just everybody has something they're involved in, and there's the extreme to the non-extreme version. I mean, it's. I think that the best part, the way to describe it, is like there's a fandom, so to speak, where
mm,
I mean, it's like it would be no different than like you and I being fans of Star Wars or Star Trek. It's just
right.
you and I don't dress up in that. You know, you and I don't.
But you and I would definitely like if we had like the money or if we had the time, we would probably potentially like dress up as
I feel like you have the money,
well. Well, it's just the well. It would be interesting, and
the
here's the thing.
desire.
One of the things is like so getting into this idea of dressing up as a character. I mean, to me, like I know some furries have like equated it to like being an actor, and yes, as an actor, as somebody who has done acting in the past, I can understand why they're trying to link that together, but to me, it's very different. Like, because with acting, like you're actually doing it for a purpose and potentially for money. Like you're doing it in a play, you're doing it, you're being an actor because it is an exciting part of being somebody different. But you're not playing the same character over and over and over and over and over again. Like you're playing different characters as an actor as
Right.
where I feel like for the furries, and the reason why they have this thing called a fursona is because this is a different personality than who they are normally in day to day life.
I
And
mean, I would say some of them take it so far as to just be this in main life, and then the human characteristics of who they are is always put on the back burner.
well, and that could be like to the extent that, and so like I feel like one of the things that I think seems to be pretty consistent is that most furries seem to have a difficult time socializing like out in public. Like
Right? They're not
that's
comfortable in their own skin, so they
right.
put on.
They put on a different skin. And in that different skin, wearing that covering, you can be more outgoing, more creative, more spontaneous, more charismatic. But
I
as
would
soon
say
as
it's almost like an online dating profile, you know?
right, you kind of put well, but with an online dating profile, you like put your best out there. This one is just kind of like a complete change.
Well, not everybody puts their best out there. They put what they want to be out there,
Well,
who they
that's
want to be.
true. I mean, you could
Even if
even
it's not
like even to an extent, you could maybe like do like Instagram models like putting out the best out there. But I still feel like it's to an extent who they are. It's not necessarily changing their personality, but I feel like
just a
with
lot of
this,
alterations to the picture itself.
yeah, and so like I feel like because from the sounds of it, from what I've heard from pretty much anybody who is a furry or who is in the furry fandom or who uh, um, like perpetuates the idea of furries. Generally, these people who are furries, they lack confidence in who they are outside of the costume.
Right.
They lack confidence in social interactions if they do not have the costume on and the interaction there. Now, that being said, it's also, I mean, a lot of there was a lot of people will say, okay, it's a childish thing to dress up in a costume because I mean, like that's something that we did in Halloween, or maybe something we would do very regularly as children, and that it is a childish thing, and I would agree with that. And it's interesting because the argument that I heard against that is that well, it's good to be childish sometimes, and I'm like, I agree when it comes to like not being so serious and enjoying yourself and even putting on a costume like would I put on a costume for my children? Like if I have children, I don't have children, but would I put on a costume for my children? Absolutely. But it's not something that necessarily, and would I change personality? Yes, I would become the character in the costume, but it's not something that I need to do. And I feel like there's a need there because that's like the only social interaction that I feel like these people get. And and so even the other aspect of it is I feel like most of the ones who are dressing up as furries, most of their most of their socializing comes from the internet.
Right.
And
Like I
kind
said,
of
an
being
online dating profile, I feel more uncomfortable online than I do in person.
well, and I think a lot of that has to do with um, being raised on computers. Like, not saying that everybody who's raised on computers is like that, but if computers is where you can interact with people and you don't actually have to go out and meet them face to face, and you're also even to an extent not necessarily pushed outside of your comfort zone, pushed into places that you're a little afraid of going, then I think you end up kind of creating this very antisocial or very insecure person, or you become a very insecure person in yourself and you lack that confidence of being able to handle those types of situations. So then getting into bullying, one of the biggest things that I've seen with these particular types of people is that they deal with a lot of bullying, partially because they're dressed up as furries and people bully them or like make fun of them, or they talk about being a furry and people joke about it and make fun of it. But even before they become a furry, they they get bullied because of their like difficulties interacting socially. Now, this is probably where a furry would come in and say, but that's the reason why I dress up as a furry is so that I can go and have interactions with people outside. I can be more confident outside when I'm dressed up in my costume or when I'm acting as my fursona. And my thing is I think that that's a huge issue. I think that that's a big problem is that they weren't forced enough outside or they weren't taught how to deal with bullies even.
To your point more specifically, I think that the other thing is like, we talked about the different sects, if you will, within the furry or fandom, this or whatever it's actually called. Like, there are some people that take it and run with it as like an idea of who they are or an image of who they are as a person. And then there's different branches of it. It's kind of like being a Republican. You have far left, far rights, Same with being a liberal, you have far left, far rights. It's like you got a base group of people that use it on everyday life, who they identify as, and then each aspect of those, there's different variations of it.
I mean,
So
I
yeah, I
like
think like the one we were watching, the main video we watched, that's someone who identifies as it, feels most comfortable doing it, not you know uses it to play around with or uses it to like be sexual or whatever. I will say that I read some articles where it's like a lot of the members are a part of like the LBG. I can't ever get the letters right. QT.
LGBTQIA plus is what it is.
Yeah, see, I can't ever get all that right. Yeah, something
The
like that.
alphabet.
The LBG plus plus plus. Yeah, a lot of members are already a part of like the LBG community. It's like so. It's that I think that's where that misconception of like it's more of a sexual fantasy thing.
Mhm.
It's because a lot of it's from that community. I mean, it's just. I mean, it's kind of like that whole dress up as a God. I don't want to say it. Or like you dress up as like a very colorful flying creature.
Oh, a fairy.
Oh, yeah.
Well, but it's not even necessarily dressing up as a fairy. The problem is like I think there's a lot of kids, and what I mean by kids is pretty much 30 and under. They've been raised in such a way that they've gotten everything handed to them, that they've been able to kind of do whatever they want to do, and there's been no real challenge to them because mommy and daddy try to protect them at all costs. And so
No,
they've never actually.
I wouldn't say they're given everything they want. They just weren't. I don't know how to describe it. Like it's not like they were given, but yeah, the protecting part was definitely spot on. Like
Well,
they were
it's
more.
they were never challenged and never forced to grow up, never forced to be like never told no to, and there's a lot of parents today who haven't, and I know one of the things that people are going to say is like, well, Nick, you're not a parent, so you don't know. You're right. I'm not a parent, but I don't need to be a parent to kind of sit there and be able to point out and say, if you were never challenged as a child, if you believe that your fifth place trophy or sixth place trophy or your participation trophy, if you believe that that wasn't put there in order to protect you from the difficulties of life, then you're a very naive person. And if you're a parent that's also been like, oh, my child gets a participation trophy, yay. No, you're feeding into that system of like, your child can do no wrong. If your child sucks at singing, you gotta let your child know. It's very difficult. Like, I can't listen to my mother sit there and say, "Hey, Nick, you're a good singer." While I appreciate that and I know that my mom loves me very much, there are things that my mom is wrong about. And so if my mom says, "Hey, you're a good singer," but she's the only one that says it, I have to be very mindful and be like, "Mom is biased." It really falls on the father to be the one who kind of like grounds people, that makes people not live in their fantasy world, not live in their dream world, but actually takes off the training wheels and then lets the child go. That creates opportunities for the child to fail, creates opportunities for the child to be afraid of something and to face that fear. But if the child is like, "Well, I'm going to stay home and I'm going to play games," and that's what they do all the time, and the father's like, "Okay, that's cool," that's a problem. Like, you've got to get out and you've got to deal with real people. You've got to interact with real people, like face to face. You got to meet them, because otherwise you're not experiencing the challenges of what it is like to actually go out and socialize and actually go out and talk to people, whether it's boys or girls, being able to actually see them face to face and interact with them. And so I feel like with the furries, what has happened is that their parents have allowed them to kind of get away with whatever they want to, do whatever they want to, and not put them into more challenging and difficult situations, and allowed the child to grow through that situation. Maybe that's what Proverbs was
I
talking
would
about,
say,
sparing the rod, spoiling the child. Is like
yeah,
not just spanking, but maybe sparing the rod of like things that are painful, things that are difficult, things that hurt, things that you're afraid of. Sparing them of that spoils them. And I think that's what we're seeing right now. I really feel like and I really feel like that's why this influx of furries is happening. Why this influx of all sorts of things that are just crazy. This influx of
yeah.
like, go ahead.
Parents don't hold accountability. Don't. They're more friends than. I mean, granted, the society we live in doesn't allow us to parent our kids anymore. They want us to just be like, well, they're human beings. You should just be there and supportive of them, while I shove my agenda down their throats in the school systems, but you should just support them emotionally. And it's like, hmm, you know, no, I'm
Yeah,
not
one of
saying
the
all parents are stonewall because of something like somebody gets involved, but a lot of parents nowadays don't get involved because it's frowned upon to put yourself in that position with your kids or to hold your kids back or to say they're wrong for who they want to be. Honestly, for me, just to recap, like hearing about it, I was like, yeah, it's just another little fad, if you will, another little thing that high schoolers or students are doing,
Mhm.
just for attention, just for kicks and giggles, just to kind of mess with their teachers a little bit. Um, I'm not saying it's gonna go away. Of course, there's a lot of people that are more invested in it.
Mhm.
But as far as like from the if it is true the shenanigans happen around the schools here, I mean those will probably just go away as quickly as they popped up. Um, but again, I think it goes back to that whole it's an identity thing. Who are we as an individual? Um, the different books I've read, there's a bunch of people that are having identity crises and they latch on to the first thing that makes sense to them or the first thing they get a hold of, if that makes sense.
And I think part of the issue of that culture that you and I kind of grew up in, of like not talking about these particular aspects, has turned into people questioning who they are, and deciding that they're going to choose for themselves whatever fits. And
Absolutely.
then their parents not kind of like putting their foot down and parenting them. And that's the thing that just, the more that I look at it, and I would sit there and say, I'm very glad. Oh, mom's gonna kill me for saying this, but I'm very glad mom was not the only one raising us. There are things that we definitely had issues with in relationship with dad, for sure. But I am
I
very
don't know about
grateful.
we.
I mean, we did. You
I
did.
was
I
just
did.
saying. I don't know.
But like, I feel like if there isn't a male role model and a good trying to say that fast, male role model. There's not a good male role model in the house, or that you can reach out to for boys and girls. Then we end up with a society where we have a crisis of identity. But I'm not saying that like it's not a thing that exists, but I think it can be equated to. I wonder how much of it is equated to how you were raised, and whether the male influence in your life was a real male influence, or if he was a pushover, or if he was a, just kind of allowed the children or the mother to do whatever they wanted to do, and he didn't actually like take it upon him, his responsibility. Because I know that people would sit there and say, well, you're just saying that we need to like stay in the patriarchy.
No,
Sure,
you're not
why not?
saying that. You're
I'll
saying
do,
that there
no, no,
needs
no,
to
I'll
be.
say it. I'll say it. Name one good thing that is name one good thing that hasn't come out of the patriarchy. This quote unquote male led society. Like, America is one of the greatest countries in the world. Had been for quite some time. The second best country in the world in terms of military, economic ability, technologically, is China, which is also a patriarchal society. Now, I'm not saying that the patriarchy needs to be like pushing down women and being like, you are just there for babies and cooking and stuff like that. I'm not saying that. But there's so much anger towards the patriarchy. I think we need the patriarchy. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining in on our conversation about furries and our ideas in relationship to that. If you have anything to say, please leave it in the comments below. If you're listening on a podcast app, subscribe and leave us a review. If you are watching on YouTube, subscribe, click the bell. That way you can be notified. Click the like button. And again, join our conversation. Write us a comment in the comments below. We would love to hear what you have to say. I'm Nick.
I'm Andrew.
And as always,
You have an open invitation to our conversation.